All right, good morning, everybody. It's your boy Akeem. Welcome to today's second blog. Here to talk about the AFC West division and each team's grades for their picks for the 2015 NFL Draft. I'm going to start things off with the Oakland Raiders. They had a pretty decent draft. Now, one area that they definitely needed to address was at wide receiver, and they went with that with their first pick in the fourth overall with Amari Cooper coming out of Alabama. And that was my pick for the Oakland Raiders. He's definitely a great player, especially in open space. In the second round, they went with a defensive end from Florida State, Mario Edwards Jr. And I think this is going to be a good pickup. He could be a decent, more of a 3-4 defensive end, but I think he has enough versatility to play 4-3 as well. In the third round, they went with the tight end, Clive Warford, out of the U. I like this tight end a lot. He's actually one of the top pass-catching tight ends entering this year's draft. Now, they still have Michael Rivera. He was actually drafted out of Tennessee, but Rivera had a couple of decent seasons. I believe he had over 500 yards receiving last season, but I think him and Warford could do work well, especially in double tight end sets. In the fourth round, they went with the offensive guard out of the U, another Miami player, John Felixanio. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. In the fifth round, they went with Ben Heaney, the linebacker that I do kind of like, coming out of Kansas. Sixth round, they picked up an outside linebacker out of Florida. Not a big fan of this, of Nerian Barr. He didn't really play too well, have too much productivity during his career, and he didn't even show much sparks coming out, collecting more tackles for loss and even sacks. A little bit of a concern with that particular selection. And also in the sixth round, they picked up a good inside linebacker from Virginia and Max Valls, who actually had 12.5 tackles last season with 9.5 sacks, 12.5 tackles for loss to go along with 55 tackles total. And in the seventh round, they had three selections. Anthony Morris, the offensive tackle out of Tennessee State, that was an okay pick. Another wide receiver, another Florida player, and Andrew Du Bois. I think this was an okay pick. He wasn't really too much of a red zone threat. He only had 4 touchdowns in his 4-year career. Next up in their final pick, Dexter McDonald out of Kansas. Now he had, I believe, 13 pass breakups last season. Not bad, and he actually 6 foot, 203 pounds. A decent player, but hopefully he can make the 53-man roster. Now for the Oakland Raiders, I'm gonna have to give them a B- for their selections. Next up, the San Diego Chargers. I did like their picks a lot. Start with their first pick, a great pickup. They actually traded up with my San Francisco 49ers, even though I don't really believe that they needed to. But they picked up Melvin Gordon, the running back coming out of Wisconsin. He should be that starting running back day one for the Chargers. In the second round, they went with Denzel Perryman, the inside linebacker out of the U, and they desperately need some help at linebacker, and I think he can help them right away as rookie, possibly become rookie of the year, but we will see. He still had to duel things out with Manti Te'o and Donald Butler. Donald Butler was one of their leading tacklers, but in the this past season, the top 2 tackles for the Chargers were both defensive backs and Michael Gilchrist, as well as Eric Weddle, who led the team in tackles. They're going to need a top-notch linebacker who has a nose for the football, and Perriman is that guy. In the third round, they picked up an underrated cornerback out of Texas State in Craig Major. He actually had 39 pass breakups and 8 interceptions during his 4-year career. Pretty good numbers, and I do like him a lot. Now, in the fifth round, they picked up the Buck Buchanan Award winner this past season, given to the nation's top defensive player in Kyle Emanuel, the defensive end / outside linebacker coming out of North Dakota State. This past season, 32.5 tackles for loss to go along with 19.5 sacks this season. A big year, helping this team actually sprouts up this past season, and even winning the award for top defensive player. Got to give him a lot of props. He possibly can start for the Chargers in upcoming seasons. And with their final pick, they would address the defensive tackle position with Darius Philman out of Arkansas. That was an okay pick. He's 298 pounds at the DT position. Now, one area that I believe they should have addressed was at wide receiver. I wish they had went with a wide receiver in this year's draft. Had they done that, I would have given them an A. But for their efforts, I'm going to have to give the Chargers a B+. Next up, the Denver Broncos. And in their first round pick, Shane Ray out of Missouri. Now, some people are concerned because he did fail a drug test due to marijuana usage. But hey, Colorado actually permits people to smoke marijuana in the state, so that's actually a clever pick with that selection. In the second round, they addressed the offensive line with tackle Ty Sombrelio out of Colorado State. That was a pretty decent selection. In the third round, they decided to address the tight end position. Even though they did pick up Owen Daniels, they did drafted Jeff Heuerman out of Ohio State. Now, he already tore his ACL, so he should be gone for the first season of his career. Next up in the fourth round, they picked up Max Garcia, the center out of Florida. That was a decent selection. In the fifth round, I do like this corner out of Tulane and Lorenzo Dawes. 7 interceptions back in 2013. One of the top in the nation in 2013. In the sixth round, they went with Darius Kilgo, the defensive tackle out of Maryland. Now, he had 12.5 tackles for loss, 125 tackles in his career, to go along with 19 tackles for loss in his career. And in the seventh round, they also had 3 seventh round picks. First, the quarterback position, they decided to go quarterback, of course, with Trevor Seaman, the Sineman out of Northwestern. I'm not really liking this selection. They did have Brock Osweiler still in that lineup, but if they was going to go with a quarterback, they should have went with a better passer, in my opinion. Next up in the seventh round, they picked up Torrin Nixon out of Tulane, another a teammate of Lorenzo Dawes, which is a decent selection as well. And in their final pick, they went with Josh Furman, the linebacker coming out of Oklahoma State. 64 tackles to go along with 14 tackles for loss and 7 sacks last season in his only decent year of his career. And hopefully he can make the 53-man roster. If not, he will possibly make the practice squad or even make another team's 53-man roster. Now, overall for the Broncos, I'm going to have to give them a B- for their efforts. And lastly, the Kansas City Chiefs. They have some pretty tough picks in this one. With the first round pick, that some people believe this is a steal, and Marcus Peters out of Washington. I think this was a great pick. And the second pick, they decided to address the offensive line with guard Mitch Merce out of Missouri. I think this was a great selection. Now, one particular area who I think they should have addressed was at wide receiver, and they did do that in the third round, but I do not agree with the receiver, Chris Conley, coming out of Georgia. In the fourth round, they went with Remick Wilson, the outside linebacker out of Georgia. He definitely has a good nose for the football and can get to the football very well. And in the fifth round, they pick up another outside linebacker in DJ Alexander, coming out of Oregon State. He had 12 tackles for loss last season. Second in the fifth round, they had a tight end and James O'Shaughnessy out of Illinois State, 6'4", 268 pounds, pretty good size, and he had just over 1,100 yards for his career and 14 total touchdowns. And with their final selection, Raheem Nunez-Araches, the defensive tackle out of Southern Mississippi, 58 tackles to go along with 14 tackles for loss this past season. Not bad. I got to give him some credit. I think overall for the Kansas City Chiefs, they have some sleepers here, and I'm going to have to give them a solid B for their efforts. Now that wraps things up with the AFC West division. The next time I'm going to catch you guys will be in just a couple of minutes, where I will talk about the AFC North division. Thank you for watching this vlog. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.